Hi everyone, I want to talk about patriarchy today. This is a subject that's not very often mentioned, and I believe it's at the bottom of a lot of the things that are wrong with our world, because it's about male rule, a toxic male rule, but nobody should rule, really, not even females, not anybody, because we are sovereign beings. So to be sovereign, we don't rule each other, and to grow up, we've got to treat other people as adults. I want to point out something that happens a lot is there's a defect in our conversation styles. Now, our conversation styles came to us, like everything else, through the male way of thinking. And male way of thinking is very regimented, and I call it the block style. Women's way is more, you could call it haphazard or spontaneous, and it doesn't sort of go by the schedule too much. I'm not saying that women don't. I'm saying that's the feminine way sort of thing. It's natural. It's more like nature. It just, just happens spontaneously. And so I'd like everybody to notice what's going on in conversations, because conversations are the building blocks of our relationships and the building blocks of everything that we do. Because if our relationships are not flowing properly, it spoils the ability to run projects and see things to success and to completion. So I'd like to make an observation, and for people to notice this. I think it comes from women have never been in the world before, prior to 100 years ago, and so men are sort of not used to having women to talk to. That they don't think women speak seriously about things. That might be a part of it, but they don't even know that they're doing it. And there's a lot of good men who don't even know that they're doing it. They do it because it's like the program, it's the unconscious program that's running. So if we observe this, then we can have a chance of intercepting the program and putting in the program that we want. So watch out for this. And I've noticed men do this with men as well. It's not just with women. This particular point in the conversations, they don't acknowledge what the person just said. They just launch into whatever it is that they want to say, and they've got their own, agenda for what they want to convey in what they want to say, whether it's an experience or something they know about, and they don't. Before they launch into that, it would be better if not they, everybody, if we, all of us, said something that the person said and acknowledge what that person just said, even if it's as much as saying, "Oh yes, that's an interesting point," and then launch into what you want to say about your own agenda and what you want to convey. But we've got to just relax and spend a bit of time in acknowledging each other, because it makes us feel so much better when we do. So that's one point. And another point that men do to women in conversations is they think that the woman doesn't know anything. They kind of lecture her. Because men are used to being the lecturers, they're used to being the teachers, they're used to being... I know that women are teachers, but the men are the lecturers. They're the ones that have had the experience throughout history, because, of course, they didn't allow women into things in those times. So women didn't get to learn anything because they couldn't even read and write. They weren't allowed to. So they're used to... If they're not used to it, it's just something that's in the programming that needs to be adjusted. And that is that you understand that a woman can have much more knowledge than a man, and women have really caught up. I mean, I know that when I speak, a lot of people assume that I don't know the most basic things, and yet a lot of the time I know much more than what they know, and they're telling me as though they're lecturing me. So just understand that, just keep that in mind, that the other person, whoever it is, man or woman, might have more knowledge and experience than you. Because a lot of the time, that's another thing that the patriarchy does. They don't ask questions. They sort of avoid asking questions. And I think that's because they feel as though asking a question puts them in inferior position, like of the student. And a student in the patriarchy's mind is low on the hierarchy, is lower than the teacher. So, I believe that the teacher or the student, they're both equally valuable. They're equally valuable. We need each other, and so this idea of superior and inferior is a program that we have to get out of, because that's part of what the patriarchy is about. It's about rule. It's about domination. It's about control. So if we want to get out of it, these are some of the signs. Let me look at... right. There is a tendency when a woman speaks for a man to for a start, when she starts to speak, they're looking for ways to oppose what she's saying. And so then they launch into opposing what she's saying, or a word that she used, or a sentence that she used that has, and they take it off to another direction to what the woman was intending it to be. And that's not part of acknowledgement when that happens. You can do that, and I'm not saying that shouldn't be done. But first of all, you've got to acknowledge the person. But even before that, you've got to let the person finish what they're saying, because men interpret things very differently to women, and they think that what the woman says in the very first few sentences is what she's getting at. But there's a turnabout. She's just giving a prelude to what she's going to say to make your mind fertile to receive this message, which often never gets out because a woman cannot finish her sentences. She's always being bombarded by opposition to everything she says. Now, it's okay to have opposition, but you can't have everything in opposition, because that means you're not thinking. You've got to point out the good points and the bad points. This is what it means to be adult. This is what it means to be equal. So let me see. Have I got anything else? That's all I can think of at the moment, but there are things that come up, and I try to point that out as I'm talking to men more so than women. The women have other problems in that they often don't engage. A lot of women, not all, of course. I'm not speaking about all ever. Do I speak about all? Because I don't believe it is ever all. There are exceptions, and I don't think we should look at the exceptions as a representation of the greater ratio, which is the vast majority. Just like the vast majority of women don't buy guns. They don't use weapons. So we need to notice these things. It's not sexist. It's actually sexist not to notice it, because it's granting favour to men. And look, I'm not saying that there aren't good men, so please don't take it that way at all. I just mean it. I used to mean it. I was angry at all men at one stage because they didn't notice it about themselves. But now I can understand why they don't notice it. It's because they're not on the receiving end of it. And a lot of the time, they're not on the receiving end of it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. So I hope that you will notice, and it's about talking about things that will make it conscious. And I really think that we're going to lick this. So let's just try and open the debate and open the discussion, and have all our differences aired. And we'll do it in a mature way, but it can be heated. I mean, it's heated anyway when we haven't got understanding. But let's try to understand each other, because that is what makes us feel good. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time.